Hi guys, Semi Foncilin from Skydive TV once again here for our 2015 rebroadcast and presentation of the events that took place throughout 2015. We had some guests in our studio from all over the world, and we really hope that you guys enjoyed not just the guests' presentations and our conversations, but also some of the rebroadcasts of the national championships and some of the events that we were able to cover up until 2014. Well, this year and this broadcast, we'll actually have a very special guest. We're going to have a one-on-one conversation with legendary Graeme Windsor, all the way from Australia. Hi, Graeme.
How are you? Good to see you again.
Good to see you again, sir, too. How are you guys doing down under?
Oh, you know, we're actually getting on top of this thing, I think. You know, it's not an easy road, but we look like we're getting there. But
Yeah.
we're all locked up. We're all no jumping, of course, and no traveling. And so we're sitting at home repacking reserves or whatever you do, putting new brake lines on and so on.
Yeah, going through some
just
memories,
waiting.
pulling out some photos and keeping up with family members.
Yeah, all of that too. Yeah.
Well, we hope you and your family are all healthy and doing well throughout these crazy times. But we would like to welcome you, Graeme, to our studio, and thank you for taking the invitation to be part of this broadcast, because this particular broadcast really connects the beginning of the relationship of Skydive TV and IPC, which is the old name of the International Parachuting Commission, and the new name is the International Skydiving Commission, and at the time you were the president. So I want to say thank you very much for bringing us in and giving us the opportunity to represent the skydiving on a world level. I have a question for you. When we first approached you, you were the president of the IPC. What was your thought about Skydive TV covering some of the world events in 2014, 15, 16, 17, and so on?
Well, you know, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I always thought that ISC, or IPC it was then, always needed its own broadcaster and its own crew to go out and bring the sport to the world the way we wanted it to. And so when you came along with this proposal, it was nice to get to know you, and I thought you could fill this gap. And it wasn't easy for you to get there, but you did a great job in showing us what you could do. And I was really happy that we were able to form a partnership together, and you were able to cover a lot of our first category events.
And the same here for us. You know, we did a test event, which was in 2014, and that was the World Canopy Piloting Championships in Z Hills. And that's where you and us officially met at Z Hills. I remember vividly the location where we actually met, which was pretty cool. But this was an opportunity for Skydive TV to present what we can do. What did you think of the entire program at that time?
What I thought of it was, I thought it was pretty good for you had a skeleton crew. There's no huge OB vans and heaps of lights and cameras. You had pretty basic equipment, but you had the drive and then the wherewithal to do a good job on it. And I thought you and your crew did a great job. You and Eva and who was it then? Somebody.
Steve Werner. It was Steve Werner.
Yeah, Werner. Yeah, Steve Werner. Yeah, and I thought you did a wonderful job. And I thought, oh, this is great. He's a skydiver, interested in showing our sport to the world. Let's get behind this guy.
Well, and we really appreciate it. We didn't really cover any of 2015 IPC events, first category events at all. But that led to for us to come to do a presentation at the 2016 January IPC meeting in Frankfurt. And it really created an opportunity for Skydive TV from there on to cover the rest of the nationals and the international events. Did you think that during that presentation, which turned out from 15 minutes, it turned out to be about 2.5, 3 hours, if I can remember correctly, with all the questions that were coming at me. But do you think at that time that skydiving as an industry, as a sport, was ready to have its own media?
Yeah, I did. And it took a lot. The reason it took so long is it took a lot of convincing of the audience you were there in front of that we needed to go this way. A lot of them. One of the hardest things to do is implement change in an organisation and implement change that works properly. And the old IPC was a bit like one of those great big oil tankers. It takes forever, miles and miles for them to turn around. If you're in a little yacht, you can turn around on a dime. So there was a lot of scepticism, I know, at the start, but I think between us, we were able to convince them, one, we had a need for this Skydive TV or a broadcaster specifically dedicated to us, and two, that we could make it work, and it wasn't going to send us broke, and it was going to bring skydiving to the rest of the world, and in a way we could afford. And I thought it was a great solution, and it was good that the majority there voted to go ahead with that partnership.
And that's really cool, because from there on we ended up covering the World Canopy Championships up in Farnham, Canada, and then we did the Mondial that same year, which is 2016, which will follow shortly after this. But let me ask you something. The IPC or the ISC is a commission under the umbrella of the FAI. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. So one thing that wasn't really clear at that time was the fact that we didn't really have a contract, because it was up to the FAI to make sure that happens, and it didn't happen, sadly. So we weren't able to really fully spread the wings when it comes to going towards sponsorships, covering the World Games, and so on and so on. How much of an influence does FAI has over the IPC?
Well, that was a time when there were a lot of dreams abound in the FAI higher echelons, and without being too critical of the board, I know that all the people who were on it were there for the right reasons. They loved air sports, but the practicalities of it were that a lot of them were perhaps living on dreams. And the dream was that the FAI could provide this broadcast technology for all air sports, and they would be the ones who pick what could be done. Well, they tried it and never really worked very well. And the trouble is, they spent a lot of money and resources on trying to develop this instead of going with what we had. And so right now, the FAI is not only in lockdown with COVID-19, but there's been a huge tightening of the budget. The Secretary General resigned. They've had to cut right back on all the expenses before this virus hit, and realised that the organisation was going broke, and this had to be addressed. And right now, I think that nobody's skydiving, and most of the air sports aren't operating anyway. But I think it'll come out the other side of this, with the sports looking more after themselves, and rather than going with some high level oversight from an executive board that really was living on dreams. Yeah,
and I, as a whole, how much do you think that the FAI? I mean, FAI is a huge organization which existed for over 100 years. It's the first federation of air sports that really put a lot of sports under the same umbrella. But as the sports evolved over the years, as the sports really grew, do you think that the FAI by itself is capable to actually take care of all the aerial disciplines and sports that they handle with such a skeleton crew?
Look, I think this period we're going through now, a lot of people will do a lot of rethinking, and it might be time to get back to basics. Many of your viewers will remember Bill Ockley, and yep, he was quite an influential figure in the FAI. And he used to say, look, the FAI, treat it like an old lady. It's over 100 years now, and we've got to look after this old lady, and so we need to work together. Well, things have moved on since then, and good old Bill, he's passed on and kicked off the skydiving museum, great legacy. And the kids that are looking after the old lady, they're growing up and they're able to they want to look after themselves now and get their own families going. And while they still have to look after the old lady, they want to get out there and do their own thing. And I think that's what they'll provide for themselves. They'll do their own thing, but they'll be still wanting to be part of the family. There's still a reason for an FAI. They do keep the records for everybody.
Sure.
And if that can be done simply, it's a good facility, but it can't go putting its fingers in everybody's lives and trying to run the whole show.
I think that will be a very difficult and very demanding and challenging endeavor on the side of the FAI, which brings me to the next question. You know, the IPC is a commission under the FAI, which legally doesn't have its own ability to sign contracts without the permission of the FAI, which greatly limits the growth of our sport, because we cannot, on a world level, sign general sponsorships for major sponsors to support the sport, which I believe, in my opinion, has greatly hurt not just the sport itself, but the competitors, because they haven't been able to progress from being an amateur to professional athletes. Which brings me to the next question. We've discussed that over the last maybe few years, and I've had great conversations with a lot of people, but my question is very strong. Do you think that it's time that skydiving has its own association separate from the FAI that is able to legally enter into binding and legal contracts with potential sponsors and grow the sport in a direction which is away from the FAI's ideas, or non-ideas for that matter?
Look, I've got mixed views on that, Sammy. Yes, that's one option. If you can't make what is currently work, then that's the natural way to go. But the structure that exists at the moment, while the IPC or ISC has no corporate entity identity as such, it's relying on the FAI. It's not impossible for it to get that. And while I was president, we actually were able to register a company for international parachuting events and tours, IPETA. And its prime focus was to establish professional tours, and canopy piloting was to be the first cab off the rank. Unfortunately, that got railroaded after I left the presidency, and it doesn't exist. And I'm really sad that I believe the international skydiving community missed out on owning its own tour event then through the FAI. It's an opportunity lost, but those opportunities are still around, and if it can be done under current structure, there's a lot of good things about that, in that all the parachute associations around the world come together through this organisation. If you have setting up a new organisation, you still need to bring all those associations and links and networks along, and that is a difficult job on its own. So yes, yeah,
that is a humongous job, and it's a humongous beast that has to be taken on, and every single association has to go on board. But it is my opinion, which I have absolutely expressed on many times over the last 4 or 5 years, that skydiving does need to have its own association, World Federation of Skydiving, that is independent with its own legal abilities to enter a particular contractual obligations with sponsors to promote the sport. And I've shared that with you and with a lot of other people. So interesting to hear your.
Well, I agree with you. Yes, it should be able to look after its own life, and the sport's grown to that size now. It's not just a little Cessna down in the backyard or out on a farm or something anymore. It's a huge, big business. It's a huge, big activity, and it can run itself.
It can run itself. I agree with you. But before I continue with the next question, I'd like to say hello to Davey Watson. Blue skies from Idaho is his comment. Blue skies to you, David. We hope you're safe, and we hope that you are enjoying our broadcasts. And the same to Steve Noonan. Steve, it's a pleasure to always have you around. Good to know you, buddy. Stay safe and stay healthy during these tough times. All right. Well, moving to my next question is, how much do you think that Skydive TV was able to contribute to the success of some of the events that Skydive TV has covered for the IPC and the FAI throughout the years?
Well, the numbers you were able to get from the viewings indicated it did very well. And I know in my country here in Australia, you were thought of it pretty highly. I mean, how many times did you come out to our nationals? And it was great to see you and meet. So yes, from where I sit, yeah, you guys did a great job. And I was a bit disappointed you had such success at Las Vegas, establishing that drop zone. It sort of meant that you had another focus.
Well, this was, I'll tell you a little story. Skydive TV belongs to a drop zone, and it really only belongs to where it needs to be. So we've reached out to several drop zones. They turned us down, so we figured, we'll start our drop zone, and then we'll get Skydive TV in a drop zone in the same place, and then we'll continue to grow from there.
Well, good for you.
Yeah, but it was an absolute pleasure to come to Australia to cover the nationals, and we miss coming to Australia and continue all the good times and all the good conversations in the different drop zones. It's been a pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you did a great job when you're here, and I hope they get you back again. Mind you, our Australian Parachute Federation, they're like a lot of others, with the current no skydiving going on, they've got no revenue coming in, and so things are tightening up, and it's going to be a while before we get back to the stage we were in my opinion.
I think so too. I think we want to come out stronger on the other side.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. I'm going to move on a little bit further past the 2015, because the 2015 was quite the year for the relaunch of Skydive TV, but it really didn't cover any of the FAI events. When we went into the conversations about what we can and what we can't do, was there any reservations, perhaps from you as the president of the IPC and the board, that what was the thing that was making people suspicious that can we cover the events, can we not cover it? Can you share some of that information with us and our viewers?
Look, from the parachuting side, I think the only question was, what will it cost us, and can we afford it? Mm-hmm. And you proved that this would work. So that to me was really not a valid criticism, because it didn't really cost a lot at all. And it was, I thought the value that ISC got out of this was far outweighed by the publicity that skydiving got internationally. What really bugged me was that the FAI thought that they could do better by getting its own company to cover all the air sports. And of course, we're looking at a much bigger budget company, and much more expensive, and getting away from the homegrown product is the way I saw it. And so I was quite critical of that. They should let us go as we were going. I thought we were going quite well, but at the last minute you were getting calls. Oh, can you come and help with the Mondial in Dubai and things like that? Yeah. And well, we told you, like, this is the people we want.
Yeah. It never happened. Some of the last minute calls that we got, these are almost impossible to put together in the last minute. Actually, that was the call for I got from Dubai was literally today for tomorrow, and that's just not possible.
Yeah. So that just sort of showed to me that really the board was living in dreams. Another planet.
Well, these are good dreams. Do you think that some of the competitors enjoyed the broadcast, and how much do you think it altered their competitiveness due to Skydive TV and their performances.
Oh, I never really thought about that, Sammy. I was thinking more about this as bringing our sport to the world. And I don't really know whether it had any effect on people's performances. Do you think it did?
Well, from your point of view, I mean, you've been to so many events. You're a competitor yourself, and we've actually had the microphone stuck in your face quite a few times over the years as a competitor, not as a president. So how do you think that Skydive TV affected the performance of the competitors for just because we were there, because people were being exposed?
Yeah, I guess on reflection, it certainly didn't detract. I mean, you know that your peers are out there possibly watching you, and so you don't want to make a fool of yourself.
Yeah.
You want to bring out your best performance. So I guess from that perspective, why not? Why wouldn't it enhance their performance?
Yeah, absolutely. So here we are 10 years later. Did you think that we would see Skydive TV celebrate 10 years from the day we started, or from the time that we actually knew each other?
Oh, well, I thought when you sort of started work on Las Vegas Drop Zone, a lot of your energies were redirected. And I thought, oh, gee, I wonder if Sammy's still going to be able to do his Skydive TV. I'm so glad to see you in that shirt there, with talking to me and the rest of the world, and doing the things you're doing. Because with no skydiving, thank God you're doing this.
Yeah. Well, the Drop Zone really was not a distraction. It was an extension of Skydive TV in many ways.
Yeah.
You know that for Skydive TV to continue doing what it does, it needs to have its proper contracts in place so that we can continue doing what we do. It's a lot more complicated than just showing up for an event and making sure that we broadcast it. You know that. We can't do Skydive TV without the authorities. We can't do Skydive TV without proper permits, without proper authorizations from the higher level officers in the sport and the people who own the events. So the 2 years that we took, the last really huge event that we covered was in Australia, which, by the way, was absolutely magnificent. You guys knocked that one out of the park, I have to tell you. And
what a location.
Yeah, we really appreciate the hospitality and everything that took place, and the Australian Parachute Federation and Brett Turner was just, and you and everybody on the staff. I can't just say enough good things about this event. It was the best thing we've ever done. But it takes a lot of people and a lot of associations to work together to continue. Since we touched a little bit of basis earlier, we need to be able to work together in order for Skydive TV to continue. So where do you see the future of Skydive TV from your point of view?
Well, I think I probably already indicated that I think that you or an organisation like yours should be working hand in hand with the ISC, should be covering all the major parachuting events in the world. And there is nobody filling that gap at the moment. And I think it should be something that the ISC can do on its own. And I'm so glad to see you there. My words of advice would be to hang in there and keep waving your flag and saying you're here, you're ready to do it, and let's work something out.
Well, Graeme, thank you for those very inspiring words, because we are ready to rock and roll, as long as the rest of the skydiving world is as well. And the only way we can do this is together, right?
Well, that's right. And you have time at the moment. As you know, the World Championships has been postponed for a year.
Yes,
and,
sir.
The World Pops Meet's been postponed for a year. And I'm really worried. The experts here are saying Australians probably can't travel overseas until there's a vaccine or this virus is under control in some way. And the experts are saying, well, let's look at what happens in the Northern Hemisphere's winter. Well, that's a fair way away. So we could be talking years before we get away again overseas from this country.
That would be tough, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be. Yeah. They're saying 18 months to 2 years. So. who knows? Might be just around the corner.
I have a feeling it's going to be just around the corner. You know, we have a lot of experts out there that thinking that now. Actually, I was watching the latest interview with some of the doctors actually right before our interview, and some of these folks are quite right, but that's a different conversation. Well, Graeme, is there anything you would like to say to our viewers that you would like to share? Some of the most memorable moments between Skydive TV, Graeme Windsor, APF, our relationship. We've done so many events together. Anything that stands out that you'd like to share with our viewers before we say goodbye?
Well, you know, just keep remembering how much fun it always was, and it will be again. And I'm looking forward, Sammy, to the day we can be sitting around the bar again at Zephyr Hills sharing a beer.
Yes.
And the same applies to a lot of my jumping friends around the world, who I maintain contact with. And you know, even though I've left the ISC now as president, I'm putting in quite a bit of effort with the International Skydiving Museum, and hopefully that'll get off the ground soon. Events like this that we're going through, this COVID-19, while there's a lot of downsides, there's also always a lot of opportunities open up.
Yes.
And we all got to keep an eye out for those. And who knows what might be next? Maybe we're going to be jumping off drones and things.
Who knows?
Yeah, but who knows?
Who knows?
Anyway, it'd be good to get back to the drop zone and hang in there, everybody, and keep the dream alive.
Absolutely, Graeme. Well, it's been an incredible honor to see you, to have this wonderful conversation. I want to say thank you very much for all of your support throughout the years, personally, professionally, on every level. You have been a tremendous support for the sport. We all love you, and you've been tremendous help for Skydive TV. We hope that we are up in the air very soon. We want to say thank you very much one more time. Yep. To all of you guys,
thank you, Sam.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you. To all of you guys out there, David Watson, thank you very much. We hope so that we made it better, and we keep doing the best we can. Please enjoy the next live presentations, actually rebroadcasts of some of the 2015 events, and we've actually done 4 in 2015. We want to start with the PA meetings and symposium. Then we want to move on to the National Parachuting Champions through United States Parachute Association. USPA decided to actually split the nationals that year. Then we have the Skydiving Museum event. Then we go to the USPA National Skydiving Championships. So guys, enjoy the rebroadcasts. Have some fun with it. I'm sure it's going to bring some really cool memories back. It will take you back into those really cool moments of those events, and hopefully it gets you the spark and the urge to skydive. And as soon as this whole COVID-19 situation is over, I'm sure that none of us can't wait to go back skydiving. So enjoy it, guys. My name is Sammy Vasiliev. You're watching Skydive TV. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.